Welcome to our webinar on ethics and professional standards in divorce coaching. I'm Heather Tannenbaum. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm here, of course, with Wendy Rovers, and we're excited to be speaking about ethics and professional standards in divorce coaching. This is an important topic. It's an important topic in divorce coaching because it's very personal work that we do, right? People come to us in a time of uncertainty and a time of stress, and they feel overwhelmed and angry and confused, and they're not sure what to do next. So, because clients are coming to us in a vulnerable position, the way we conduct ourselves matters. And we have to ensure that we are using best ethics. And ethics aren't just rules that we use when something goes wrong. Ethics are there to help us, to guide us in communication, how we protect information, how we establish boundaries within our own practice and with our clients, and how we respond when a situation becomes unclear or complicated.
Today, we're going to focus on 7 main areas. We're going to begin with the role and scope of a divorce coach. We'll discuss ethical responsibilities and professional conduct, appropriate boundaries, conflict of interests, confidentiality and privacy, coaching agreements, and informed consent and cultural sensitivity. We're also going to work through a few practical scenarios toward the end. And our goal here is to make this useful and applicable to your own practice.
Thanks, Wendy. So before we begin, Wendy and I just want to clarify what this webinar is and what this webinar isn't. This webinar is educational. It's not legal advice. It's not psychological advice. It's not really advice at all. And this should not be treated as a substitute for your own professional codes of conduct or professional requirements that may apply to you within whatever jurisdiction you're in. And so we hope that today's discussion encourages you to reflect on your own role, agreements, boundaries, privacy practices, documentation, referral network, and ethical decision making. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is the role and scope of a divorce coach. So a divorce coach, we can start with that. So what we do, and this is something that we talk about a lot, but it bears repeating. So we help our clients identify their goals and priorities, organize information and documents, prepare questions for their lawyers, their mediators, any other professional that they're working with, prepare for difficult conversations and for meetings, recognizing their triggers, developing healthier communication strategies, establishing boundaries, thinking about all the options available to them, making them aware of what those options may be, and to follow through on next steps. One of the big things that we do as coaches is ensure that we're holding our clients accountable for what they say they're going to do.
And a divorce coach doesn't replace a lawyer or a therapist or a financial professional or a parenting assessor or a family violence specialist, unless the coach holds the appropriate qualifications and is clearly acting in a separate professional capacity. The coach needs to know not to, give legal advice or interpret the law for the client or predict what a judge might decide or tell the client what legal position to take or diagnose a mental condition or diagnose the client's former spouse or provide therapy or trauma treatment or conduct a parenting assessment. The client may not always understand where coaching ends and where another professional's role may begin. So that means that it's the coach's responsibility to explain the distinction.
Absolutely. And so, for example, a client may ask, and this happens to me all the time, and I know it happens with Wendy, am I legally entitled to stay in the matrimonial home? As a coach, you shouldn't be answering that question. You should be encouraging them to seek answers with the appropriate professional. And in that case, it would be the lawyer. So a coaching response, for example, could be something like, it's an important question for your lawyer. Let's write down the question so that you can go to your lawyer and get the answers that you need. Okay. Another client may ask, do you think my former spouse is a narcissist? We are not therapists, nor have we ever met their former spouse, so we don't know. So our answer should simply be, I can't diagnose that. And then shifting your client's focus away from whether their spouse is or isn't a narcissist or isn't whatever they are or not, and focusing back on what the focus of that session is and moving your client forward. Focusing on that isn't going to help them move forward. And so the focus remains an observable behavior and the client's response.
Mm. And a client might also ask, what should I offer in settlement? Well, as a coach, we can't make that decision for the client. We can say something like, let's look at the priorities that matter most to you. Maybe look at the information your lawyer has provided to you, what makes sense for you, what are some of the questions that you might have and still need answers to. And we might say something like, that falls outside of my role, or I don't know, but I can help you to identify the right professional and get prepared for that conversation. Like, let's think it through together. And the great thing about DCAO is the access that you have to professionals who can help, you can bounce ideas off one another and we can help each other out. Ethical responsibilities and professional conduct is where we're headed next. So once the role is clear, the next issue is how a coach is expected to conduct themselves professionally. Now, the code of conduct and ethics you can find on the dcao.ca website. There's a link, so you can go and refer to this at any time. But ethical responsibilities include acting honestly, representing qualifications accurately, practicing within one's competence, protecting client welfare, communicating respectfully, maintaining accurate records, charging fees transparently, avoiding misleading promises, referring appropriately, continuing professional education, and taking responsibility when a concern or a mistake arises. Professional conduct is reflected in your everyday decisions, who you choose to be in your life, not just major ethical problems.
Right. Like, for example, coaches need to be honest about what we can realistically help our clients achieve. Okay. As a coach, we can't be making promises that coaching will produce a specific settlement, improve a court result, or anything else that's an unrealistic expectation. Okay. We need to be accurate in our marketing and manage our clients' expectations and help them understand it's incumbent upon us to help them understand what we can and cannot do in our role. So basically, our job is to be clear about what we do and what we don't do.
And competence is another ethical responsibility. It includes education, experience, judgment, self-awareness, and recognizing when a situation kind of exceeds your coaching knowledge. So a coach, you may be skilled in communication and organization, in all kinds of areas, but we may not have specialized training in coercive control or domestic violence, addiction, trauma, financial abuse, tax matters, complex mental health situations, child development. And the ethical response is to obtain consultation, come inside the community, or refer the client to an appropriate professional.
Which is another reason why we love working with DCAO because it gives us access to a lot of these other professionals that we have kind of in our database. But professional conduct also means keeping our personal feelings and opinions out of the coaching process. People come to us all the time with their stories that can be emotional, and we may strongly relate to their story. We may have really strong feelings based on, where we come from in our personal life. However, we need to remain thoughtful, professional, and neutral. Our clients need a safe, non-judgmental space that they can come to, and it is our job ethically to provide that. The goal is not to decide who's good, who's bad, who's right, who's wrong. Our role is to help the client become more intentional, prepared, and effective. We also need to avoid presenting assumptions as fact. So, for example, instead of saying your former spouse is intentionally trying to destroy you, that's not professional, and that is highly opinion based. Instead, we might consider saying something like, you've described a pattern of communication that leaves you feeling pressured and distressed. Let's look at what's happening, what is within your control, and what support may be appropriate here. That is a more coaching appropriate response.
Yeah, and ethical practice also involves accountability. So if a client raises a concern, it's helpful for the coach to listen um, rather than coming up with an answer or being defensive. It's helpful to consider and have a process for addressing complaints or misunderstandings or billing concerns or privacy concerns or requests to end your coaching relationship. Professional credibility doesn't mean that we're not humans who are going to make mistakes, but how are we going to respond responsibly when concerns arise?
Yeah, and another important aspect of this webinar itself is maintaining appropriate boundaries with our clients. Okay. Divorce coaching often involves warmth, trust, compassion, empathy, and that connection is important. But it's also because of the vulnerable state of our clients and our desire and skill in helping our clients or wanting to help our clients, those lines can sometimes be blurred. And so we have to remember as coaches that we're not their friend, their hero, their rescuer, their therapist, a family member, or their emergency contact. Okay, so boundary concerns may include things like excessive communication outside of sessions, providing frequent unpaid support, becoming involved in arguments that they have with their former spouse, accepting expensive gifts may be a line that you don't want to cross. Socializing with your clients, attending personal family events for them, sharing too much personal information about yourself, becoming emotionally dependent on the client relationship, and allowing the client to become dependent on you. Our job is not to be their crutch. That is counterintuitive to the entire coaching practice, whereby it is our job and our role to help them stand on their own and become self-sufficient and make good decisions for themselves.
Yeah, and it's helpful um, to think about what your boundaries are and maybe establish them early on in your relationship with a new client. Um, how can they contact you? When are you going to respond? Um, are you open for in between coaching call session calls and contact? What 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 do you consider urgent? And when will you be available for them? And what should the client do in an emergency? Are you available to review documents outside of sessions? How are you going to handle missed appointments and cancellations? Kind of creating agreements are very helpful for you in your business practice and for the client, so they know, what's coming and what they can expect out of your relationship, and are you open to changing. It's the coach, you may begin making exceptions because the client's upset, or because you're feeling like you really want to help them out. So it's helpful to give these boundaries thought, um, now and before working with a client.
And Wendy's so right. You can make exceptions rather. And when you make exceptions, it doesn't mean you're being unethical. It just means that, it's more important for you to kind of keep yourself in check sometimes, right? So it's important to notice internal warning signs within yourself. So what you have tendencies to do. So for me, for example, I'll bring a personal example into it. I have a tendency when a client sends me a text or an email late at night, I immediately want to go and help them because in my head, they're stressed out. It's an easy, quick fix, and then they can sleep. But again, what message does that send? And is that actually serving my client, right? Because it doesn't serve them and doesn't allow me to fulfill the coaching duty that I have to them when I'm answering them at their whim, right? Boundaries are not unkind. Boundaries create clarity, safety, and allow you to maintain professionalism. A coach can be compassionate without constantly being available or emotionally invested, right? There's a big difference between being compassionate and being emotionally invested in your client.
And now we're going to move on to managing conflicts of interest. So, a conflict of interest arises when a coach's personal or financial, professional, or relational interests could interfere or appear to interfere with their judgment. And some conflicts are obvious. A coach maybe should not work with one spouse while secretly sharing information with another spouse, with their other spouse. Other conflicts may be less obvious. For example, suppose a coach previously worked with one spouse and is later contacted by the other spouse. Now what do you do? Even if the first coaching relationship has ended, the coach may have confidential information about the other spouse, making it inappropriate to coach them. So these are things for you to consider. And there's all kinds of scenarios and situations that may come up. And this is your business. And working within code of ethics and professional conduct and boundaries will be helpful for you, I think, in the long run, for sure.
And another issue that comes up and has come up quite a bit for me is when you're asked to work with both spouses. And I've spoken to certain coaches about this. They're like, "Oh my God, that's so unethical." But is it? Because if you set up your boundaries and you set up your rules for what is okay and what isn't okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be unethical. So there may be coaching models where it's appropriate. But before you do that, as a coach, it's incumbent upon you to find out and to consider who's the client, whether the coach is neutral, what information will remain confidential, whether the private individual sessions will still occur, how transparency looks, what information may be shared, whether both parties understand the arrangement and agree to it, and whether the coach's prior relationship with a client is going to affect impartiality. So if you're starting to work with both parties together, that part becomes, a moot point. But there are times where it can be appropriate, but as a coach, be mindful and transparency is key here. So a coach who supported one spouse or both spouses, you can still remain professional. It's how you go about it. And the purpose for us bringing this up today is to alert you to the fact that this is something to consider before entering into it. Don't go in blindly, be prepared.
Yeah, and how about referral relationships? Um,
Hmm.
can they create conflicts? A referral from a lawyer or a mediator or a therapist or a financial professional. This is how we grow our business. And where what something to consider is your feelings of loyalty toward that referral source and how that might interfere with you coaching your client. So consider, um, does it interfere? Do you kind of start leaning more towards the referral source and paying attention to what they say and what they want? Is it taking away from your conversation and your helping your client? Is there pressure that the client needs to stay with that professional? You know, sharing information without permission. Are you refusing to provide alternate referrals because of your loyalty to your referral source? Are you placing the referral relationship above the client's interests? And these are things for you to consider and to think about and to notice inside yourself. Any financial referral arrangements should be transparent and must comply with applicable professional requirements. Consider that. It's all okay. You can run your business however you want to run your business, but take into consider um, the ethics that we're speaking about.
And personal relationships can extend beyond that of the other professionals, right? It can be
Yeah.
a personal relationship with a client. So it may be inappropriate to coach a close friend, family member, employee, colleague, or someone with whom you have a significant relationship. Even when the coach believes they can remain objective, the client or another professional may reasonably question the coach's impartiality. And the appearance of a conflict can be just as damaging as an actual conflict. So, when in doubt, the coach should pause, disclose the concern where appropriate, seek consultation, and consider referring the client elsewhere. So, another topic is confidentiality and privacy. This is paramount to coaching, and it's one of the first questions people ask me at the initial consultation. Is everything I talk to you about confidential? And so confidentiality is obviously central to the coaching relationship. Clients are coming to you and they're divulging very, very personal information, whether it's financial information or even just some of their thoughts and feelings. Clients need to know that they can speak openly and they have a safe space to do that. At the same time, however, coaches should avoid promising absolute confidentiality if there are legal, ethical, or contractual or safety limitations that you have within your jurisdiction. Those limits may vary, but limits should be explained beforehand and before the coaching begins so that the client has a complete understanding. And it goes back to Wendy when she was saying about transparency.
Yes, and it's also important to distinguish confidentiality from legal privilege. So a client may believe that everything they tell the coach is protected in the same way as communication with their lawyer. And that may not be the case. So this is where it's important to have this conversation with your client. And you may want to say, I treat your information as confidential and take reasonable steps to protect it. However, coaching communications may not have the same legal privilege as communication with your lawyer. And again, this comes back to how you're running your business. Are you taking notes? Are you not taking notes? Are they stored somewhere? Are they not stored somewhere? And Heather's going to speak more towards that.
That's a great segue, though. So thanks for that. Privacy also includes information, how it's collected, stored, transmitted, and potentially destroyed. So things to consider are whether computers and phones are password protected, whether you're getting in the car with your kid and the client's name appears when they call you randomly, whether files are encrypted, whether paper records are actually stored securely, how they're stored, whether clients' names appear in calendar invitations, whether sensitive information and documents are sent through personal email, online coaching platforms, are they secure? Whether records are backed up, how long are records retained, and how these records are eventually destroyed. It's a lot to think about, and it's not a necessary requirement that you think about it all right away, but these are important things to consider if you're starting or operating a coaching practice and you want to do it ethically.
Yeah, and it's more about consent should be clear and meaningful. You know, not hidden inside a long agreement that you wouldn't read or your client is unlikely to read. So all of your recordings and transcriptions, take everything that Heather said and keep that in mind as you're growing your practice.
And also, a big topic now, a hot topic is AI. And AI can be used and can be very useful and productive in generating certain coaching tools, educational materials, worksheets. It can help you administratively. But as a coach, and I I don't have all the answers, but I certainly have a lot of questions. And that would be, how is this AI stuff stored? Are you transcribing things from your Zoom meetings? Where's that stored? How is that being managed? These are all things that should be considered. And so these are things to understand. And a coach still remains responsible for checking the accuracy of your AI generated materials. So before you go and publish articles or do whatever, you need to make sure and fact check and make sure the information that you are putting out there is accurate and factual. And so AI, it's like what I say to my kids, you can use AI, but use it smart and figure out how to use it in a way that it enhances as opposed to compromises your integrity, your facts, and your ethics. And so, Wendy, do you want to go into coaching agreements and informed consent and that topic?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So, so something to consider is what is your coaching agreement? How does it look? Um, and each coach has a slightly different agreement. This is yours to create and create with your client. And here's some things to consider. You know, explaining the purpose of divorce coaching, what's the coach's role, the limits of the coach's role, the service being offered, the cost, cancellations, missed calls, what happens when the relationship ends. Um, what are your, are there, on the spot in between coaching calls available? What do you do in case of emergency? How are you going to address any concerns? So as you're creating your coaching agreement, these are some things to consider. And you can probably use AI to help you out too there and get some other ideas. But we're giving you a little starting point here.
And signed agreements are important and they're a necessary tool. In fact, when I got my insurance to practice, that was one of the first questions the insurance company asked, do you have a coaching agreement? And let's see it. So it is important, but equally as important is whether your client understands what they're signing. And they're going through, like we talked about at the onset, they are so overwhelmed emotionally, financially, they don't know always, they're not showing up to you as their best self, because if they did, they wouldn't need our services. And so it's important for us as coaches to be cognizant of that and make sure they understand what they're signing. Make sure they have an opportunity to ask questions about it. And if the agreement kind of changes, if your coaching relationship with them is taking a different course, maybe you originally signed on to help them with their financial stuff and now you're helping them with their co-parenting stuff, you may want to revisit that coaching agreement. Not because you're acting in an unethical way, but simply to ensure that they understand what it is that is the nature of your relationship with them. So the client should have that opportunity to ask questions and to come to you whenever they have those questions. That's an important part of the coaching agreement in addition to having them sign it.
Yeah. And something else to consider is consent. Um, how specific are you going to be when you communicate with another professional? Like, for example, if the client asks you as a coach to speak with a lawyer or a mediator or a therapist, maybe your consent should clarify who can receive the information, what information can be shared, why is it being shared, how will it be communicated, how long does the consent remain valid, and can the client withdraw the consent? A lawyer who refers a client to a coach is not automatically entitled to receive updates. This is the conversation that you as the coach can have with your client and come to some agreement.
Yeah, informed consent is ongoing and changes in the nature of the relationship, as I spoke earlier, should still remain should be clarified. And so, what will the new role be? Who's the client? What information can be shared? How can I share that information? So there are times where I will have a meeting with the client's permission and knowledge, just with their lawyer. The client isn't even there. And so it's important for me to establish that set of expectations with my client ahead of time as to how do you want the meeting to go? What information should I share? And whether the coach is even competent to provide that service. Is it appropriate for me in certain situations to meet with a lawyer alone, or does the client need to be there? And so consent should be revisited whenever the role, the service, the technology, the fees, the confidentiality arrangement, or method of communication changes. So that will move us on to the final topic or segment of this webinar, which is cultural sensitivity. And so clients do not experience divorce in the same way. Okay, their decisions may be influenced heavily by culture, religion, family traditions, immigration status, language, disability, gender roles, sexual orientation, economic circumstances, community expectations, and previous experiences with discrimination or authority. And so cultural sensitivity means recognizing that our own belief and experiences are not universal. It goes back to what we were saying earlier about not bringing your own personal opinions and experiences into the coaching process. This is a very good example of why.
And as a coach, um, be curious. You know, are there cultural, religious, family, or community considerations that are important for me to understand? Are there beliefs or traditions that that I can ask questions about inside the coaching process? Is there anything about your background or experience that may affect how safe or comfortable you feel discussing this? Being curious with your client, being curious with yourself, asking questions. This is all useful for you as a coach.
And cultural sensitivity also includes language. Okay, a coach should avoid stereotypes, assumptions, and judgmental language. We shouldn't assume that a client wants a particular parenting arrangement, financial outcome, or communication style simply because of what their background is. So whatever we may or may not know about their particular background, we should not put those assumptions onto them unless we're hearing from them that it's something that they want. It's also important to avoid using family members as interpreters when confidentiality, safety, or accuracy may be affected. Where language access is required, the coach should consider the use of an appropriate professional interpreter.
And another thing that a coach should consider is power and accessibility. And for example, is the coaching space accessible? Can the client understand the written agreement? Does the client need information in another format? Are technology requirements creating a barrier? Is the client afraid that seeking help will affect their immigration status or community standing? Has the client experienced racism, discrimination, or institutional mistrust? Cultural humility means understanding that we may not know everything. We may not know everything about the client's experience. It requires us to get curious, to listen, ask respectful questions, avoid assumptions, and be willing to learn.
And being culturally sensitive doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. It means approaching them respectfully and recognizing that the client is the expert in their own lived experience. And so asking the questions in a respectful manner is the way to go about it. And again, you can always ask permission to ask a question. You can always say, with your permission, I'd like to ask this. And so, you know, just be respectful, but be cognizant. We don't have, I know Wendy alluded to some short scenarios, but we thought it would be better if we kind of asked you guys if there's a particular scenario, whether hypothetical or not, that you would like to kind of talk through here and figure out, different ways to approach it. If it's something that you've experienced in your practice, whether you're a coach or whether you're another professional on this call. And if not, then we can, provide a few of those, or we can, open up the floor to discussion or questions.
I'm happy to throw something in if it would be
I knew
useful for
you
the
would,
group.
Eric.
I'm
Thank
happy
you.
to, and because there are a lot of similarities, but one of the things that really resonated with me, um, Heather, you were talking about if someone reaches out to you, let's say after hours, and I am very guilty of this. I'm up, I'll run to my office here and I'll get to work. And I know better than that's unhealthy. Like I should be sleeping. And that the client doesn't expect to get back to them right away, even though you get in your own head, thinking that they demand an answer right now. They probably wrote to you at 11:30 because they didn't want to forget I needed to ask about X, Y. And so seeing is that something that coaches experience as well. I'd just love to hear, any tips you have for dealing with that, for reminding yourself maybe that it's not an emergency, that you can get back. I try to say these kind of things at the beginning of an engagement when I'm meeting a new client for the first time. I said, listen, I'm always available. And I never say I'll get back to you the same day. I always say I'll get back to you within 24 hours. That way, if it's late in the day, I don't feel caught. But I'd love whatever you, Wendy, anyone else on the call, how you sort of handle through that. Because I think it's something we all experience. Again, if this question is helpful and useful.
Wendy, do you want to tackle that one? Because I suspect you're probably a lot better at it than me.
Sure. So something that we're all, running our businesses differently. We all work differently. We all coach differently. For me, something that I offer my clients is on the spot coaching in between sessions. And in my agreement that I co-create with my client, they're all different, but often it will say, you can email me or text me. They have my personal phone number as a client, or text me, and I will respond as soon as I can, and then we will set up a time that works for the both of us. So for me, I'm not looking at my phone kind of after 9 o'clock at night, and not responding to clients, certainly not responding to clients after that time. And that works for me, so, but I don't think there's any do it this way written in stone. That's for sure. I think whatever works for you in your business, then then you do that. And when it doesn't work, you iterate, and you do that. And so that kind of works well for me. I mean, Janice or Annie, you're running your business, Rochelle. What works for you? What works for you? And yeah, it's personal.
Yes, share your tricks of the trade.
Hmm.
Hi everyone, it's Janice. I'll just jump in here.
Hi,
Um,
Janice.
Hi, good morning. Just first of all, I loved everything we talked about. So I'm not currently practicing yet, and I'm sort of a prospective DCAO member. I've attended a few of these webinars, love them all, and definitely want to become part of the membership. It's just that as far as a timeline's concerned, I think I'd be better prepared in a couple more months, just because I need to do some things to set up and kind of continue to keep developing and building,
Sure.
foundational knowledge and things. But as far as what you had said about professional boundaries, I think that is just so like paramount. Just and to your point, everyone will have a different style and a different way to go about it, and it's up to everyone to define what they're comfortable with. But I think going back to what you had said about expectations, like I think it was you, Heather, that said, like if you get into the habit of replying 5 seconds, or
Yeah.
after
Yes.
they send a message, even if you want to, it's like then you're kind of yeah, I do think it does set an unrealistic or maybe a bit of a dangerous precedent or like a behavior to go forward, and then I do think it can get a little bit gray. So yeah, just my two
Yeah.
cents on the matter.
Thank you. And it can become unhealthy
Yeah.
and you don't have to, you're not on demand.
Yeah.
And so it's especially when, you're just starting your practice and you're eager,
Right.
you want new clients and you don't want to lose a client and you want to make sure you're servicing them to the best of your ability.
For sure.
Get in our head that that means that we're on demand, but that's
Yeah.
not what it means.
And I
And
also think, oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like I think another benefit to not possibly prematurely or impulsively responding would be that you can potentially get better prepared. Like if it's something that you might need to potentially research more or think about or I don't know, consider more deeply before.
Yeah.
Even though, as you said, the urge and the desire to help, I think we genuinely do all want to help, but I think it's a matter of, as you guys have both reiterated a lot, like it's about being thoughtful and really conscious and careful and
Yeah.
impactful.
And sometimes I'm not as disciplined as Wendy that I put my phone away at 9 p.m., though I wish that were the case. If I see an email or a text message come in from a client and I'm just itching to answer it, it's my own stuff. It has nothing to do with my coaching ability or my relationship with the client or my professionalism. It's just I have an itch to respond. I might write something like, I will review this carefully tomorrow and get back to you.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so now I've satisfied my itch
Yeah,
and I'm not accessible completely.
right.
Sometimes that works for me, but I've also found in my practice, it depends on the client. I had a client who was notorious for calling me on a Friday or Saturday night after 8 p.m. And so I simply just didn't answer because I couldn't be professional necessarily, and I didn't
Mhm.
feel that it warranted an answer. My personal boundary that I set was I would respond to that client the next day and say, I missed your call. I saw I missed your message. Would you like to schedule a time to talk?
Mhm.
And that was how I established that boundary. So
Mhm.
sometimes to Eric's point and to Janice's point, it can be on a case by case basis.
Sure.
That was very helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I see there's a question in the chat, but to be honest, I'm not sure how to access it now. It's gone. Arlen, are you able to jump on
Yeah,
and help with
I
that?
can read that for you.
Thank
So
you.
from Annie, we do have a couple questions. One just sort of an admin side, asking if there's any slides available to look back on later. So I don't think we have any slides developed for this, but we are recording this and we'll be launching the video after some very light edits just to cut out unnecessary convo. And then the next question from her, we have, where can we find templates for coaching agreements, knowing that we would customize based on our specialty? And she's mentioning that she is a financial planner.
It's a very good question with respect to the templates. And I'm not entirely sure. I would suspect that when I know how I did mine years and years ago was with the certification body that I used for my training and my certification provided some templates. And so I kind of like modified some of that and made it my own. That's what I did years ago. I'm sure that today with AI, there may be, easier, more effective ways to go about doing that. Wendy, do you have any suggestions?
No, that sounds like those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're, is it Annie? If
Yeah.
you're looking for some templates, um, what I can do is ask inside. Well, are you a member, Annie, of DCAO?
Can pull up the list.
No, not yet. Are they
Okay.
in the membership?
Well, here's the thing: is inside the membership there's a wide range of professionals that are part of DCAO, and what is your profession? Sorry, did I see financial
Yeah,
professional?
Certified
financial planner.
financial. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So inside the DCAO or membership and organization, there's a number of financial professionals, and um, what what our hope is for this community and what we're growing and building here is we can all work together and bounce ideas off one another, and there's probably members inside the group who'd be happy to share their agreements that they use
Yeah.
with you.
That's a
So
great.
that's yeah, that's a real benefit of becoming a member. Um, Also, if you're not a member, but you go onto the dcao.ca website, there's some information there. There's some stuff there that may be able to help you out. So hope that's helpful. Anything else you'd like to know about, Annie?
No, I think there's like a foundational part of an agreement, which is what I'm trying to figure out. Uh, because divorce coaching is not regulated, so you kind of have to protect yourself in this agreement. As a financial planner, I am regulated, so I would add certain sections there for myself,
Yeah.
which I already have. Um, And then I would assume that, if you're a mediator and that depends even from where you're coming from, like that would require different elements to the agreement. But I was just wondering in terms of a divorce coach, like for example,
Yeah.
um, what I'm learning as a financial planner, which I've been doing for a long time, but have been called to do this very specific part of planning, there are different elements. So, for example, I probably wouldn't do a financial plan right off the bat. If someone getting divorced, they would first need financial disclosures completed,
Yes.
right? Way before I even do anything with
Sure.
projections.
Sure.
So, um, well, one is with regards to this agreement question, but the second is where do I find other planners specializing in divorce that can mentor me or coach me in terms of learning the nuances that maybe I don't know yet? Because you
That's
don't
a
know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well,
And I think Wendy's advice earlier and suggestion was brilliant in terms of, you know, if you were to join DCAO, you have access to the network there. And I know for a fact that there are a lot of seasoned financial, divorce financial professionals on there that would probably most likely be very willing to help you out. It's a really inclusive and helpful group. And I can think off the top of my head of several people who would be very happy to mentor you or help you along the way because anybody in this community we all believe in the value and the strength in numbers. And we're all here to help other people rise up so that we can make the quality of divorce coaching and divorce professionals in general that much better.
I'm happy to
Are
speak to
the
that.
members on the DCAO site? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, just
No, it's
wait,
okay.
wait. Remember what you're going to say, Eric. Are the members, am I able to filter based on profession in the DCAO site?
Well, that's something that we're working on right now. It's in progress because that's something that it's literally being worked on right now. So in the next few weeks, that will be a thing. You'll be able to filter. So we're going to have different categories, uh, divorce coaches, financial experts, uh, realtors, therapists, and it'll be categorized and easy to access because right now it's just kind of a muddle. But when you start somewhere. So we started there with a little muddle, and then yes, that's being
Perfect.
filtered out right now. It's in the works, and the fellow who's Corey is his name, is putting the website together, and he's got all of what we want, and he's working on it right now.
We're happy to report that we're at a number now where this becomes a necessity.
Okay. And
So we
can I reach
are,
out to you individually?
sorry,
Can I reach out to you individually?
100%.
Thank you.
We are nearing the end of our session. So before we open it up to any other questions or conversations, I just wanted to let everybody know that the next webinar like this will be taking place on August 19th. Same time, same place. And the topic of that one is core skills used in divorce coaching. And that webinar will be hosted by Jennifer Donison, one of our divorce coaches, and she's also a mediator, and I believe myself. So there you go.
Yeah.
Rochelle.
Hi. I'm a wealth and investment advisor, and I help my clients work through life transitions, divorce being one of them. And I've been to one other workshop or webinar of yours, and I'm interested in possibly becoming a member. So if I was to join, do I just go to the DCAO.ca website and there's like a registration link there?
There is.
Okay.
There is.
Okay.
And again, if you wanted, once you do that, before you do it, after you do it, at any point, if you want to reach out to one of the board members, you're welcome to do that. And any one of us would be happy to jump on a 15, 20-minute Zoom call with you, answer any questions you have, go over with you in a more personalized way the benefits of joining DCAO. And that goes obviously for you too, Annie, Janice, you as well, anyone. So that's also an option for you.
I would love that.
Arlen, sorry to interrupt. Arlen, can you drop the link for registration in? Bam, she did it.
You already
See?
did it.
So awesome. There you go. Now you can copy that link, and that's how you register.
I don't actually know how I
Thank
exist
you.
without Arlen, to be honest.
Thank
Does
you. And
anybody? Yeah,
do you guys host on a monthly basis, like
we do.
workshop or okay.
We have workshops, we have webinars, we have in-person events, we have a whole bunch of stuff, and we actually have an events calendar. We have an events page on the website that you can check out. I don't believe you need to be a member to access. Oh, you do need to be a member. No, you do not. See, I can't exist without Arlen. You do not need to be a member of DCAO in order to access the events page, and that might be a really good way for people who are considering membership to take a look at some of the stuff that we offer and see if it's your vibe.
Yeah, so just to jump in quickly, I did add the two links there. So there's the how to join link where you can see the information about our membership and the different membership types on that page. And I also provided the DCIO events page because you sounded curious about other upcoming events. So you'll be able to see the next webinar that Heather mentioned. There's another workshop coming up on August 4 as well. So we sort of distinguish the two where the webinar is more focused to professionals And the workshops are more focused for self-represented litigants. However, we welcome anyone to join either. It's just a little bit more tailored to specifics that way. And talking about our next in-person event, I did want to mention because it is starting to come quickly, but it's not until September 28th, and it's an in-person event for a film screening for a movie called The Burning Bed, surrounding the new tort of IPV. So you can learn more about that on their website too, because I don't know the exact description there for you.
That's one that we're not that not that anyone should get excited about domestic violence issues, but the event in and of itself is a great one, and it's an important one, and I'm actually very excited to be a part of it, and I think it's going to be a great one. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, jokes? Okay. Well, I think we can conclude by thanking Rochelle and Annie and Eric and Janice for coming, and Arlen as always, and Wendy for being a super co-host.
Thank you.
You guys.
Thanks, Heather.
Wendy and
Have a
Arlen.
great day, everyone.
Thanks all.
You
Thanks,
too.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.